Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting of the 27th of November 2024, and I declare the meeting open at 1:02 p.m. As we begin, I acknowledge the Ballardong Noongar people, the traditional custodians of the land where we meet today, and the Ewart and Whadjuk people who are custodians of other lands within the Shire of 2J, and I pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. We have, under records of attendance today, under 2.2, Councillor Jury is on approved leave of absence. And then item 2.3, Councillor Madachi is requesting leave of absence from the 28th of November 2024 until the 31st of January 2025 inclusive. Can I have someone to move that we, Councillor Wrench, and seconded Councillor McCormick? Is there anybody objecting to that? Okay, we declare that carried. Understanding order 9.1. Are there any disclosures of interest at this point? Councillor Madachi.
Yes,
Excuse me, Councillor. I appreciate your interjection, but I'll do that. Thank you. Councillor Madachi.
Yep, I have a disclosure of interest, just trying to bring it up, and damn it. I'll just bring it up on the email, be easier. Too many screens open. So, I have a disclosure of interest under item 9.3.3, the 2025 Australia Day Citizenship of the Year Awards. Do you want me to read this now or when the awards come
We can
up?
do it when we get there.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is public question time, and we've had questions from Mr Lamass, Mr Heffron, 2J Herald, Mr Hart, 2J Herald editor, and they are included in the agenda. And we had some questions yesterday from Mrs Chitty, which will be included in the minutes. So those questions and answers are available either in the agenda or in the minutes once the minutes are issued. Which brings us to public question time. So do we have any public questions? Mr Heffron.
Shire President, and is that better? Firstly, thank you for responding to my many questions on notice. I know there's a flurry, I know you're busy. I'd like to also acknowledge Hugo's last meeting. To my questions. The Shire President's public notice, dated 12th November 2024, refers to a review of compliance by the CEO. Will this review be made public?
CEO.
Through you, Mr. Shire President, no.
In respect to the facilities and building review, can the Shire please provide a list of property assets, including heritage buildings, that will be considered for sale as part of the Shire's facilities and building review?
Through you, Mr. Shire President, the Council is still going through that review, and it'll be another number of months before we finalise that.
Thank you. And would the disposal of Shire property assets come to Council for approval?
Through you, Mr. Shire President, yes.
Just a couple more questions. This is in regard to...
Just hang on. Is there anybody else wishes to ask a question? Okay, can we come back to you?
Sure.
Because the deal is two questions and in rotation, so...
Happy to do that.
Yeah, thank you.
No, thanks.
So, Mrs Ruthven, do you have a question?
Thank you. Beth Ruthven, ratepayer. My questions relate to Resolution 283-1124 from the special meeting of the 6th of November 2024, and the subsequent advertisements for 4 executive management positions. Were the executive managers consulted prior to their positions being advertised?
CEO?
Yes.
If the CEO considered that there were performance issues, were they offered opportunities for performance management?
That's a confidential matter, a staffing matter, won't be answered.
Thank you, Mrs Ruthven. Is there somebody else have questions? Mrs Pearce? Remember, we have 2 questions in rotation at this point.
Susan Pearce, ratepayer, Hoddesville. My questions relate to item 9.1.1, the draft of the local planning policy, setbacks of caravans and similar mobile habitable structures. The local government states the role of council is to determine policy. Would you please indicate how and when council determined there was a community need for the setbacks of caravans and similar structures? That's my first question. Do you want my second one now?
Do them one at a time.
Through Mr Shire President, that's why it's on the council agenda for council to consider.
No, I'd like my question answered. Would you please indicate how and when council determined there was a community need? I'd like that question answered, please.
Oh, well, I can answer that if you like. Council hasn't determined there's a community need, and council hasn't done that yet until we've considered the item.
Okay, my second question then. Would you please explain how council participated in determining the presented draft policy?
Through you, Mr Shire President, at agenda briefing and now at council.
Sorry, I missed that.
Through you, Mr Shire President, at the agenda briefing and now at council.
My question says how you participated in determining the presented draft policy. The draft policy was done before the agenda briefing.
Yes, council had no part to play in that because council only meets at council meetings.
So your answer...
So maybe your question should be councillors.
No, council, the role of council is to determine policy. That is the role in the Local Government Act.
Yeah, thank
so
you.
can I just
So
have
do you
that clarification that council did not play a part in determining this role? Is that your clarification?
No, that's not what I said. I said councillor had no role in compiling the policy.
Okay, thank you. Council had no role in compiling the policy. Thank you.
Sorry, compiling the draft policy, I should say. But back to you.
Thank you, Shire President. These questions, they're quite brief, but I have to give some context first of all. They're from agenda item 9.3.5, page 49 of the agenda, under the heading Financial. And just to give you the context, the heading states, or the paragraph understates, the cost paid to Club Links for site management for the 2022-23 season was $538,000. And in 2023-24, it was $537,000. The cost of engaging contract aquatic facilities for the 24-25 pool season is $157,800. So my questions are, the reference to $538,000 for Club Links, is that for management of the total rec centre, including the pool?
Before you answer that, have we not answered this question at the agenda briefing? Happy to do it? Yeah. Okay, CEO.
Through Mr Shire President, the amount quoted in there was the last full payment to Club Links. That was for both the recreation and the pool.
Thank you. And how much of that $538,000 was actual management fee versus coverage for operating deficit?
I'll take it on notice.
With the new pool contract, who is covering the operating deficit?
Could you, sorry, repeat that one?
With the new pool contract, who is or which party is covering the operating deficit?
Through you, Mr Shire President, that's a council expense.
Thank you. And last question, and thank you for your indulgence. What is the budget deficit for the rec centre, including operating deficit and management fee.
I'll take that on notice, Mr Shire President.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs Ruthven, do you have more questions?
In January 2020, the Council resolved by absolute majority to designate the executive manager positions as senior employees in accordance with section 5.37 of the Local Government Act. Has this Council resolved to change the designated status of the senior employee positions?
Through you, Mr Shire President, no.
Advertising of the 4 new executive manager positions suggests that the current contracts have been or will be terminated. Is that the case?
Can you repeat the question? I'm failing to hear you.
The advertising of the 4 executive manager positions suggests that the current contracts have or will be terminated. Is that the case?
I'll take that on notice.
That's my 2 for this time.
No, Mrs Ruthven, oh well, you can keep rotating if you like. So, Mrs Pearce?
These questions pertain to the question that I asked item 9.1.1 before about the draft policy. Would you please explain, from the draft policy I quote, this policy complements the local planning scheme number 5 by addressing setbacks for mobile habitable structures. My question is, would you please explain where in the local planning scheme number 5 mobile habitable structures are addressed?
Through you, Mr Shire President, they're not, hence the reason for the policy.
The policy quotes that it complements that, but they were not in the policy. Is that correct?
That's correct, that's what the policy states.
My next question is, this policy requires a development application, a planning approval. As the State Planning Policy 3.6 and the RCOOD references, does not reference the number of habitable mobile structures that can be approved on a property, would you please provide the number that can be approved in each of the local planning scheme's zones, that is residential, rural residential and small rural holdings?
Through you, Mr Shire President, I'll just pass on to the Exec Manager Planning for that one.
Thanks for your question. So the issue is technically the application that they're applying for, it's not a development application because they're not considered development like a structure or so on. The reason why we are bringing this policy up is because the government has relaxed the requirements now for people to have caravans and camping on their property. It's rather broad with no sort of specific references like we would do through a normal development application through the scheme and so on. The issue that we found, and this is relating to an issue that we are currently dealing with, is that a structure like one of those cabins on wheels has been placed within the boundary setback area, and that's affecting the amenity and privacy of adjoining landowners. So we have devised this policy to provide that position that this is something that needs to be considered when those applications come forward under the caravan and camping grounds regulations.
Thank you for your response, but that didn't answer my question. My question was...
Sorry, Mrs Pearce, the question's been answered.
No, it wasn't answered.
Well,
That was not my
I'm-
question. That was not my question, and I have a right to have my question answered, the question that I asked.
You've had your question answered. You don't have to be happy with the answer. Have you got another question?
I will take that on notice. Under the Act, every person has a fair and equitable to have a response.
I'm not going to argue the point with you, Mrs Pearce. Have you got another question?
Not in this category, I don't.
If you have another question, you may ask it.
I said not in this category, in a different category I do.
I don't understand what that means, but...
I don't have any more questions on 9.1.1, if that's what you're
No,
asking
I'll
me.
move on to your next item, if you've got
Oh,
it.
okay. My next questions refer to item 9.1.2, modification of Delegated Register DAR8, Development Application Delegation. The officer's background report states the modification of this delegation is to permit officers to approve setback variations up to 50%. My question is, would you please explain what process Council undertook to review this delegation, given that the purpose of the modification was a setback variation? Well, you can answer that one first if you like, then I'll give you the next one.
Through you, Mr Shire President, the variation at the moment is unlimited, and that is not good governance. So my advice was there needs to be a restriction of my staff can actually approve a delegation setback. The recommendation is 50%. So what that currently means is in the rural residential area where the setback is 30 metres, my staff right now can approve a setback on the boundary, and I do not believe that is what the council's intent would have been, and it shouldn't have been.
Thank you, I accept that the purpose of the modification was setback variations, I accept that. But would you please explain the reason for the amendment to the powers and duties section, particularly the new expressed delegated powers, for example, development approvals, procedures with dealing with development approvals, and actions to be taken on receipt of applications?
Through you, Mr Shire President, the only thing that's changing in the delegation is limiting the setback variation that the staff can actually approve.
I have heard your question. If councillors had read the delegation, they would see that this has changed. So given that the purpose, once again, the modification was setback variations, would you explain the amendment in the function section where modified delegated authority is given to the CEO or his delegate to 1, grant or refuse applications, receive, administer or consider approvals, council development approvals, amend or impose conditions on approvals without the development application coming to council for a decision?
Through you, Mr Shire President, I'm unclear with the actual question, but if the question is why is it to the CEO, that's because council delegates to myself and then on delegate. If there's anything else about why planning items aren't coming to council, well, under the current delegation, certain planning items don't have to come to council because they've been approved by delegation to be dealt with by the CEO on delegated to the Executive Manager of Planning. In this case, now, setbacks that are more than 50% will be required to come to council and staff will not be able to approve them under delegated authority.
Third question. Is council aware that delegated authority was previously used by CEO to approve the Catholic Heritage Precinct subdivision and the resulting costs and distress it caused the community? The application was not brought to council.
So council never approved a subdivision at the Catholic Precinct. That's a matter for the Western Australian Planning Commission.
The delegated authority was used by the CEO to approve that it did not come to council.
The subdivision approval for the Catholic Precinct did not come to council. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
That's because it's a decision of the Western Australian Planning Commission.
The decision did not come to council.
I've answered the question.
Would you like my other questions as
Yes,
well while I'm
yes,
here?
yeah.
Okay. The council forums policy. I'm very concerned that many conditions extensively worshipped by council have been removed from the previous version. I accept that change has happened. Would you please explain how and when council was involved in the review of this policy?
Through Mr Shire President, as previously stated on another item, during the agenda briefing and now at this council meeting.
I will not list all the conditions removed, but this paragraph was struck out. At workshop, where issues may require a further decision of council, officers looking for general guidance from members so they may make improvements or report to the report and attachments. It is the role of council to make policy. Would you please explain how the removal of this condition aligns with the policy objective to guide elected members and officers with transparency and accountability?
Through Mr Shire President, without looking in detail at the policy, I'll take that one on notice.
I have questions in relation to item 9.3.5, the 2J Recreation Centre. I think some of them have already been covered by I don't know if they were actually. From the Emergency Act 2005, an emergency means the occurrence or imminent occurrence of a hazard which of such a nature of magnitude that requires a significant and coordinated response. My question to the Shire President, would you please explain the nature of the emergency at the 2J Recreation Centre and in what way did it meet the definition of an emergency?
Through you, Mr Shire President, the emergency was the pool would be closed immediately, and further advice was that it didn't need to be considered as an emergency. The CEO had the approval to do it and just has to authorise the expenditure.
Would the Shire President please explain what steps were taken before the emergency was declared to contain what appeared to be an operational matter? I think you've answered that one. I think you have. Okay, all right. And my third question is, what procedures will be followed to safeguard the community from similar problems occurring again?
Through you, Shire President, I'm working through a number of issues to rectify and put in place changes to moving forward.
Given that the pool running costs are estimates, how does Council intend to ensure cost overruns from the Shire management of the Recreation Centre and from the recent advertising of the 4 executive manager positions are within the community's capacity to pay?
Through you, Shire President, prudent financial management and also reducing waste. And
does Council have the reserves that could have been called upon, if required, for other unbudgeted expenses?
Through you, Mr Shire President, the Shire of 2J has minimal reserves because, in my view, they have not managed the finances well previously and have not put away reserves money. For example, plant reserve, so that needs to be rectified in future years.
I think that does mean. Thank you.
Mrs Ruthven, you had some more questions?
Mr President, are you aware of section 5.37 of the Local Government Act, in particular part 2 regarding the legal obligations of the CEO and the council in relation to the removal of the designated senior employees?
Through you, Mr Shire President, I'm well aware of...
Excuse me, I ask the Shire President.
Excuse me, if I didn't hear the last section, the last bit. The removal of?
Designated senior employees. Are you aware of the Local Government Act, section 5.37, regarding designated senior employees?
Yes.
Okay.
So what's that got to do with the removal of them?
Legal obligations to the CEO and the Shire President and the Council.
To inform Council? Is that what you're asking me?
I can't hear you.
Are you saying that there is a legal obligation to inform Council of those things?
I'm saying that Council has a legal obligation under section 5.37.
Yeah.
Through you, Mr Shire President, yes, they're well aware, and in advice I've provided them, I actually provided 5.37.
Sorry, could you get closer to the microphone so we can hear you?
5.37, and in particular, if you're referring to the hiring and firing of senior employees, yes, the council will be advised of that on every occasion.
So, based on that, did the council resolve that the contracts of the current senior employees would be terminated, as would be required under 5.37 Part 2 prior to the positions being advertised? And if yes, where is the documented evidence of that decision? And if no, why were the positions advertised well before the expiry of current contracts?
Through you, Mr Shire President, this is a confidential matter going into employee issues. However, it's very regular to actually advertise positions before existing positions finish.
I have more questions, not...
Yeah, carry on.
Okay. Yep, okay. Okay, these questions relate to item 9.3.5 in the agenda. Mrs Pearce asked what specifically was the nature of the emergency, and you said that the pool would have to be closed immediately, but that did not answer why the pool would have to be closed immediately. What caused the emergency?
No qualified staff and compliance issues.
Thank you. Under what legislation was the situation deemed to be an emergency, and was the Shire's Emergency Management Officer involved in making the decision, or the LEMAC?
Through you, Mr Shire President, one, LEMAC's not relevant. Two, as I previously advised, it did not require emergency, and I got advice after that to say it had to just be authorised. However, I made sure I was informed the Shire President of the situation.
So, was council advised of the advice?
Through you, no, because it was dealt with urgently, and so to make sure we could get the pool up and running, matters had to be put in place to start with.
Was the pool open on the weekend of the 9th to 10th of December?
Through you, Mr Shire President, as far as I'm aware, it was, yes.
Okay, so that was after the Recreation Facilities Manager finished on Friday the 8th and Contract Aquatic Services commenced on the 11th of November. Okay, so if the risk was considered extreme, why was the pool kept open to the public?
Through Mr Shire President, I was able to source a temporary qualified person.
For that weekend.
Was the WA Health Department notified of the non-compliance issues? And if not, why not, when public health and safety was considered an extreme issue?
Through Mr Shire President, you're assuming that it was a health compliance matter. However, they have had water samples taken to them.
In the officer recommendation in comments and details, it lists reasons why it's not feasible for the facility to be operated entirely by Shire staff. Who reached that conclusion, and was it before the Recreations Facilities Manager tendered his resignation?
Through Mr Shire President, I won't talk about staff matters, but I will say it was me that made that decision, and it was me based on 25 years of local government experience with a number of those running pools.
Okay, so council wasn't kept informed?
Through you, Mr Shire President, Council has been kept informed through items that have come to them. However, it's an operational matter and I have managed those.
The officer recommendation quotes a portion of the purchasing policy 6.5, emergency purchases, to justify the recommendation to council in this item, but omitted the last paragraph of 6.5, which says, time constraints, administrative omissions and errors do not qualify for a definition as an emergency purchase. Instead, every effort must be made to research and anticipate purchasing requirements in advance to allow sufficient time for planning and scoping proposed purchases and then obtain quotes. Given that all of the compliance issues that are listed in the officer recommendation as reasons for the recommendation could and should have been managed during the months leading up to the opening of the aquatic centre, how do you justify the decision to call this an emergency?
Through Mr Shire President, I think I've answered this question 3 times now about whether it was an emergency or not.
Well, not
I'll-
really.
Please. See ya.
The fact that the pool would be closing was a reason to actually justify undertaking action. The emergency provisions did not have to be relied upon as per advice I've since received.
I'm sorry. Could you give me that again?
Which part, sorry?
All of it. Sorry. I mean, I've had to repeat my questions, so
So basically, as I said before, this question has been answered on the emergency provisions. I did not have to rely on the emergency provisions, but I did so to ensure that the Shire President was fully informed. And the urgency was that the fact that the pool would be closing immediately.
but if you were able to hire somebody temporarily,
Okay, I think we're debating there. Do you have another question?
okay. The entry fees for the 2J Recreation Centre were resolved by Council as part of the annual budget and did not include any free entry days. So when did the Council decide that entry to the pool would be free on Tuesdays?
Through Shire President, I have delegation to waiver fees.
Which delegation is that, please?
I'll take it on notice.
Okay. Also, when did Council decide that children could have free entry to the pool on Wednesday the 30th of October and Thursday 31st of October before the official opening of the season?
Through you, Mr Shire President, operational matter which I made the decision on.
Okay, even though that was an extreme risk.
Through you, Mr Shire President, it wasn't known at that stage.
Thank you.
Mr Heffernan.
Thanks. This is to the CEO through the Shire President. Just want to clarify, you've confirmed that the legacy issues, which you said were of a safety and compliance nature, were identified the 31st of October. That's in your report. I've just heard you state, maybe I misheard you, that the level of urgency or whatever wasn't known at the time. So can you please clarify what you mean? When were these legacy issues around compliance and safety confirmed? You said the 31st of October in your report.
Through you, Mr Shire President, on Thursday, the 31st of October, I became aware of a number of issues. And from there, after following on there, doing investigations, looking at things, I became aware of more issues.
Your report states you confirmed compliance and safety issues by the 31st of October, yet the pool remained open for children.
Through you, Mr Shire President, and some of those issues were rectified immediately.
Okay, thank you. One further question. Given that this has been called an emergency situation as per the report, and perhaps take this question on notice, can you provide the Herald the last 10 instances of an emergency? Thank you.
Through you, Mr Shire President, no, we won't be taking up too much resources.
I'm happy to make the last 4 then.
Are there any further public questions? Mr Ruthven. And might I point out that so far we have spent 30 minutes on public question time,
Peter Ruthven,
and
Ratepayer.
I will bear with you because this is your first question.
My questions also relate to the swimming pool. Is water quality testing for the Health Department being carried out on a regular basis?
Through you, Mr Shire President, all requirements are now being carried out.
Has the Shire or Club Links ever received an improvement order or a closure order by the Chief Health Officer under Regulations 22 and 23 of the Health Aquatic Facilities Regulations 2007?
Through you, Mr Shire President, I'll take that on notice.
I don't know whether it's okay. Regarding this Palin test photometer, does it belong to the Shire?
Through you, Mr Shire President, I'll take that on notice. I don't want to give the wrong advice.
So you won't know then whether Club Links actually ever used that one.
Through you, Mr Shire President, I'm not here to debate.
Are you aware that the check standard solutions which users of the equipment can use to test the accuracy of the photometer?
Sorry, Mr Ruthven, could you say that again?
Beg your pardon?
Could you repeat the question?
Aye.
Mr Ruthven? Yeah,
Well, I'll bend down a bit.
yeah, you might have to...
It's only
thank-
it's only
yeah.
two more questions, Steve. Right. Are you aware of the check standard solution which users of the equipment can use to test the accuracy of the photometer?
I'll take it on notice.
So you don't know. Oh, that's a pity.
Can you please not do that?
Sorry?
Can you please not pass comment after you've asked, the question's been answered? Just move on to your next question.
Well, I can't understand you mumbling up there.
Can you please not make comments under your breath after each question? Just move
I
on
haven't
to the...
made. That's one
Mo-
comment, not
well-
under others.
Well, don't do it.
Please don't misrepresent me, Mr.
Please
President.
don't do it, and please do not debate with me. Move on to your next question.
Misrepresenting me. What
You
legal...
just did it again. Please,
I would know. I was making a direct... Wasn't a direct... That was a direct
please
statement
do
to
not
you.
make, please do not make comments under your breath.
It was not under my breath. That was a direct statement to you into the microphone.
So what was it? Repeat it. But what was your comment? Repeat it.
I was still talking about whether that was a direct statement to you.
Okay, move on to your next question, please.
Yes. What legal requirement is there for the Palin test unit to be recalibrated?
Through Mr Chair, President, I'll take that on notice.
No, never mind.
Please don't do it. If you go, please, anybody who's asking a question, it's not a time to make little snide comments under your breath as you walk off. Thank you. I'll declare question time finished if there are no more questions at 1:39. Move on to the next item of business, which is the confirmation of the minutes. So the first item is 5.1. The recommendation is that the unconfirmed minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 23rd of October 2024 be confirmed. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Devell, do I have a seconder? Councillor Prater, are there any objections? Okay, I'll declare that one carried. The second item is that the 5.2, the unconfirmed minutes of the special council meeting held on the 6th of November 2024 be confirmed. Do I have a mover? Councillor Wrench, and a seconder, Councillor Devell. Are there any objections? No, I'll take that as to be confirmed. Carried. That's right. I was distracted by somebody leaving the chamber. Item 5.3 is that the notes of the agenda briefing held on the 20th of November 2024 be received. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Devell, and a seconder, Councillor Wrench. Are there any objections? I'll declare that carried. Are there any petitions, presentations, submissions? Councillor Pearce.
Five years ago, the Shire of TJ was subject of a Department of Local Government inquiry. The nature and the scope of the inquiry included...
Before we move on, which item on the agenda are you referring to?
It refers... this is my submission. It comes down as I'm coming down.
Carry on. Relate to an item on the agenda.
It does.
So
9.1.1.
oh, thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
9.3.1. So I'm just getting into my submission.
Okay, carry on.
I'll start again. 5 years ago, the Shire of Toodyay was the subject of the Department of Local Government inquiry. The nature of and scope of the inquiry included the adequacy of and adherence of council policies and procedures by both elected members and administration staff, and also included the cultures within the Shire. From the Local Government Act, it is the role of council to determine policy. This month's agenda has several policies. 9.1.1, the draft of the local planning setbacks for caravans and habitable structures. There may be a need for this policy. In reply to public questions, it appears Council did not play a role in determining this policy. It did not workshop the draft proposal. The policy is silent on the number of structures that may be placed on residents' properties or the land zone required. I respectfully ask Council to defer this policy until it is workshopped, and Council has provided administration with feedback. 9.3.1, Council's forums policy. This policy has been previously workshopped. I am concerned that the role of Council, which is to make policy, has been greatly affected by the removal of several key conditions. I also respectfully ask Council to defer this policy until it's workshopped, preserving the role of Council to make policy that works and supports community needs. Item 9.1.2, modification of the Delegation Register DAR 8, Development Application. The officer's report states there is a need for modification to permit officers to approving setback variations. Yes, that is included in this amendment. However, the amended delegation goes further than the above. The modification gives the CEO or his delegates the power to grant, refuse applications, receive, administer, consider approvals, counsel developments, amend or impose conditions without the development application coming to Council. I bring to Council notice a similar delegated power was used in the Catholic Heritage Precinct without the application coming to Council. The delegated power caused not only community distress, but was a cost on Shire resources to mitigate. From the Local Government Act, the role of Council is to govern local government affairs and be responsible for the performance of local government functions. I urge Council not to support the officer's recommendation to modify the delegated authority for development applications. Allow Council to grant, refuse, receive, administer, amend conditions on development applications. It is your role. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Pearce. Are there any other submissions? Okay, thank you. Move on to announcements by the presiding member, number 8 on the agenda. Since the October Ordinary Council meeting, the Shire President attended a Works Advisory Committee meeting on the afternoon of Wednesday the 30th of October, attended a special meeting of Council on Wednesday the 6th of November for the purpose of considering an appropriate structure for administering the local government of the Shire, attended and chaired a meeting of the Bushfire Advisory Committee on the evening of Wednesday the 6th of November, attended the gathering of the WA Bush Poets and Yarn Spinners Association in the 2J Memorial Hall on the afternoon of Sunday the 10th of October to present awards to successful poets and yarn spinners, met with the CEO on the morning of Monday the 11th of November to address the situation that had arisen at the swimming pool following compliance and safety issues that needed attention. Together with the Deputy President Councillor Deval and the CEO Mr Aaron Bowman attended the RSL Remembrance Day Memorial Service in the morning of Monday the 11th of November. Together with the CEO Mr Aaron Bowman attended a meeting of the 2J Roadways Committee on the morning of Wednesday the 13th of November. I attended a meeting of the Council of the 2J District High School on the morning of Thursday the 14th of November. On behalf of the Morangut Progress Association, which had raised over $4,000 at a quiz night, and together with the Deputy President Councillor Deval, Councillor Prater and the CEO Mr Aaron Bowman attended the Moringup Community Market on the morning of Sunday the 17th of November to present cheques of over $1,000 each to St John Ambulance, the 2J State Emergency Services, the Moringup Bushfire Brigade and the Moringup Progress Association. Together with the CEO, Mr Aaron Bowman, attended a meeting of the Avon Regional Organisation of Councils on Monday morning the 18th of November. Together with other councillors, attended a council workshop to discuss the Shire of 2J Buildings and Facilities Review on the afternoon of Wednesday the 20th of November. Attended and chaired an agenda briefing forum on the afternoon of Wednesday the 20th of November. Together with the CEO, Mr Aaron Bowman, attended a Wolga Avon Midland Country Zone meeting on the morning of Friday the 22nd of November at Kalingari. Together with the Deputy President, Councillor Duval, Councillor Prater, a CEO, Mr Aaron Bowman and Councillor McCormick attended the opening of an exhibition celebrating the 50th anniversary of the publication of Rika Ericsson's book, Old 2J in Newcastle. The exhibition at the Old Jail Museum was prepared by the 2J Historical Society, and Dr Robin Taylor delivered the opening address. And on Sunday the 24th of November, I was pleased to be able to visit the Rome Distillery in Moringup on their official opening weekend. Congratulations should go to Mr Shah Tutikian for bringing this new business venture to fruition. The dry weather fire season is now on us, and since October OCM, the Shire of 2J Bushfire Brigades, assisted by Fire and Rescue, at times have turned out to 18 fires, 10 of them in our Shire and 8 elsewhere. I have a few reminders for councillors and others to register please for the Shire's SMS notification service for harvest, vehicle and hotworks bans by sending an SMS of the word bans to 0407 017439. I'd also like to advise that the 2J District High School is winding up its academic year with Year 1 to 10 awards assembly on the morning of Tuesday the 10th of December, a Year 10 graduation dinner on the evening of Wednesday the 11th of December, and the last day of Term 4 will be Thursday the 12th of December. And also let everybody know that the 2J Christmas Street Party will be held in Stirling Terrace on the evening of Friday the 13th of December from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Which now brings us to item 9.1.1, which has been the subject of some discussion already, or some questions. 9.1.1, draft local planning policy, setbacks of caravans and similar mobile habitable structures. With the officer's recommendation on page 14. Do I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Okay. No, I'm asking if I have a mover for the officer's recommendation. Okay, we'll have to move on from that for want of a mover. Moving on to 9.1.2, the modification of the delegation register. Is there a amended? There's no amended motion for this. Okay, I wish to make a small amendment to the actual attachment referred to. I will move the officer's recommendation with this small amendment. On page 15 of the attachments, the draft delegation matter is referred to. I have a question here. I think there needs to be an amendment under conditions. The delegation reads, the above authority is subject to compliance links contained in this instrument of delegation, including section S67, consideration of application by local government contained in the planning and development regulations. I think that should read contained in Schedule 2 of the Planning and Local Development Regulations. So,
You could,
Yeah.
sorry, through the chair, you could refer to it as the deemed provisions.
well, yeah, okay, okay. So subject to adding the words according to Section 67 contained in the deemed provisions. So we add the words the deemed provisions after the words contained in. So with that amendment, which is a minor amendment, I will move that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Deval? Do I have a question, Councillor?
Yes, I'd
Madachi?
just like to foreshadow an alternate recommendation, and that the alternate recommendation is that council, in keeping with 2B of the corporate documents policy, withdraws item 9.12, modification of delegation register DAR 8, development application delegations, to workshop for further discussion.
Okay, so that's in, if this recommendation fails, you would move that? Is that what you're telling me? Okay, so I've moved the recommendation. I don't wish to speak to it. Do you wish to, anybody wish to speak against it? Councillor Madachi?
I think there were quite a lot of changes in this document, and there were some areas there that I think needs further clarification, and certainly for council to have some sort of informal discussion, bearing in mind that under the corporate documents policy we are supposed to be having input into that in accordance with section 2.72 of the Act to determine the local government's policies. So I feel that this hasn't occurred in this case. I would be voting against this, and I would like to see the alternate get up.
Do you wish to speak in favour, Councillor Deval?
Yes. I'm happy with the policy as it is. I've read through it, I've done my due diligence, and I think that it strengthens the delegation while at the same time providing that additional guidance and certainty for residents as they put in applications. So I'm quite happy as it is.
Okay, anybody else wish to speak against? Or for? No. In that case, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour of the recommendation as amended with that minor amendment? Councillor McCormick, Councillor Prater, Councillor McEwen, Councillor Deval. And those against? Councillor Madachi and Councillor Wrench. So I declare that carried. The next item is regarding fencing at the 2J Club. I think we do have an alternate motion has been put forward for this. Councillor Deval?
Okay. So I'm just putting in, as previously advised, alternative motion, which is essentially the same first 2 points of the officer's recommendation, with a third point that states agrees to a $3,000 contribution towards the cost of replacing the fence. And my reason for the alternative is to make it clear that the Shire is contributing $3,000 towards this fence on Shire property.
So, okay, so are you moving that?
Yes, I'm
Do I have
moving
a
that
seconder
motion.
for that? Seconder? Oh, sorry, Councillor Wrench got in first. Would you like to speak to the...
No, I think it's a fairly
Okay.
straightforward motion.
Okay, are there any objections? Okay, we'll declare that amended, or that alternative recommendation carried. The next item is the monthly financial statements with the recommendation on page 23. And the recommendation is that council receives the monthly financial statements and supplementary information as attached. That's on page 23. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Wrench, seconder. Councillor Prater. Do I have any objections to that? Okay. Well, thank you. Let's declare that carried. The next item refers to the list of accounts as presented and listed for the month, with the officer's recommendation on page 25. Do I have a mover? Councillor Prater, and a seconder. Councillor Devell. Are there any objections? I'll declare that carried. The next item is quite a long one regarding some sundry debtor write-offs, item 9.2.3, which are mainly small write-offs of debts owed to the Shire, with the recommendation on page 28, which is quite a long recommendation, so I won't read it out. Do I have a mover for that recommendation? Councillor Wrench, seconded Councillor Devell. Do I have any objections to that? Okay, declare that carried. Council forums policy. There's an officer's recommendation in the agenda, but I believe there is an alternative resolution as well. Is that correct? No? No? Okay, so the recommendation is simply on page 33 that Council adopts the revised Council forums policy and requests the CEO to make any necessary typographical amendments prior to publication. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Zavell, and seconded Councillor Prater. I'm guessing we're having some objections. Councillor Madachi?
No, I have a question.
Question, yep.
If I may. The question is, if the officer believes the information in the current forum policy that was revised this year is duplicated in the current governance framework, why revise this policy again and not retire it?
Through Mr Shire President, the governance framework covers most things but not all.
So I've had a mover and a seconder. Have I got any objections? Councillor Madachi?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Does the mover or the mover wish to speak to it? No. Seconder? No. Councillor Madachi, speak against?
Look, my only objection to the current form is that there's been some significant removal of information in the council forums policy. While overall I can see it simplified things a lot better, some of the things that have been removed I think are quite critical to councillors' understanding of what their role is in the forums and what those forums entail. And so I do have some concern about that and wonder, and suggesting that this policy also should really be reviewed by council before being adopted, I should say.
Okay, does anybody else wish to speak for or against? Do you wish to make a rebuttal? No?
I guess my only comment would be that it's possibly presumptive of Councillor Madachi to suggest what other councillors might be thinking
Excuse me.
in terms of their
I think that's
understanding.
not a
Point of order.
Yes, Councillor?
Point of order.
Yeah.
That remark is not acceptable.
No, I ruled it out of order. Well, if you mightn't have heard me, but I ruled it out of order, yeah. That being the case, if there's no more debate, I'll put the motion to the vote, the recommendation to the vote. All those in favour that council adopts the policy, that's Councillor McCormick, Councillor Prater, Councillor McEwen and Councillor Devell. And those against, Councillor Wrench and Councillor Madachi. So I declare that carried. Item 9.3.2 is to do with a superannuation policy that the council has. The recommendation is that council retires the superannuation policy. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor McCormick. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Wrench. Are there any? Councillor Madachi, you have a question?
Just two questions, actually, if I may.
Yeah.
The first is, by retiring this superannuation policy, will the Shire only be paying employees the level of contribution decided by the federal government's superannuation guarantee?
Through Mr Shire President, no.
Right. The second question is, will the current 5% additional superannuation co-contribution by the Shire, subject to being relevant before tax and after tax contributions caps, cease?
Through Mr Shire President, no.
Thank you.
So I think I got to the, are there any objections is where I got to?
There will be an objection now.
Okay. Would the mover like to speak for it? Councillor McCormick? No? Councillor Madachi, you'd like to speak against?
Yes, the purpose of having the superannuation policy was to provide council co-contributions. Now, on top of what was decided by the federal government superannuation guarantee. We've just been informed that the federal government superannuation guarantee won't be adhered to, in the sense that there could be further payments, and also the 5% additional superannuation that we were contributing is also not ceasing. Therefore, looking at the report, I don't feel that this has provided sufficient information regarding the financial implications of this decision, and I won't be supporting it.
Anybody else wish to speak for or against? Well, not really, because it'd be part of the debate, wouldn't it? Yeah. So, there being no more, does anybody wish, you don't wish to make a rebuttal, Councillor McCormick? No? In that case, I'll put this to the vote. All those in favour of retiring the superannuation policy? Councillor McCormick, Councillor Prater, Councillor Wrench, Councillor McEwen and Councillor Zavell, and against, Councillor Madachi. So the next item on the agenda is to do with the recipients for this Community Citizen of the Year Award. I need some clarification on this. Are we expected to conduct this ballot today?
So through Mr Shire President, obviously later on councillors can determine with their ballots, but we can pass this resolution that just guides the outcome.
Okay, so the resolution at the moment is that councillor selects the recipients for the Community Citizen of the Year Awards by secret ballot and acknowledges that in the event of a tied ballot, the President and CEO will determine the recipient based on submissions. It doesn't actually include a time limit for us to do that at Council.
Through Mr Shire President, we need to do it by the end of the month, so we need to do it today.
Okay, so we do need to do it today? Okay, so we'll need to do that behind closed doors?
So through Mr Shire President, if council, there's two ways council can do this. They can either agree to the recommendation in front of them, and then we just need completed ballot papers before councillors go today, or otherwise we can go behind closed doors, do the ballot, and then actually provide the updated officer's recommendation. This is how it's been done in previous years.
Yeah, that's the way we've done it before. Councillor Prater, you have a suggestion?
Could we push this item back to the last item?
Yeah, that might be a good idea. So I'll move that we move this to the end of the meeting, if that's okay. If I've got someone to second that, Councillor Wrench. So we'll come back to that one, and we can do that behind closed doors. Moving on to item 9.3.4, committee restructure. Okay, so this is the one with the alternative recommendation, is it not? Okay, so Councillor Zavell, you have an couple of alternative recommendations?
I have a alternative recommendation for the officer's recommendation 2. So do you want to outline that first or deal with the first
Okay, let's
recommendation?
deal with officer's recommendation 1. which is that council disbands the Environmental Advisory Committee, effective immediately, disbands the Work Advisory Committee, effective immediately, disbands the Heritage Advisory Committee, effective immediately, and requests the CEO to inform all committee members about the decision, the reasons behind it, and the benefits of the new approach. Do I have a mover for officers' recommendation number 1? Councillor Devell. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Prater. Do I have any objections to officers' recommendation 1? Councillor Madachi. So would you like to speak to the motion, please, Councillor Devell?
I'm moving this motion in support of it because I do think that working groups provide more flexibility and does lessen the officers' time in agendas and minutes, and yeah, I do think it will be beneficial.
Okay. Councillor Badachi, you might wish to speak against?
Yes, I'm speaking against because when this was proposed to me as the chair of the Environment Advisory Committee, it was proposed that there would be a working group panel or a panel established, and that has not been evident in the minutes. Also, I highly object to how the Environment Committee was portrayed within the body of the report, and it certainly has not been an accurate reflection of that committee and really cast it in a detrimental light.
Okay. Any other councillor wish to speak for? Councillor Prater?
I would just like a bit of clarification, if I may, through the chair to Councillor Badachi about in the report, where is she referring to that it's been betrayed?
You happy to point that out, councillor?
If I come back to the report. Excuse me, just scanning back up. Right, just going down pretty much the whole report. It says the committee consists of 2 councillors and 2 committee members. Yep, that's fine. Most interaction happens through Microsoft Teams. That's inaccurate. The most recent interaction occurred as a workshop for the review of the local biodiversity strategy. That was also didn't occur. We did not see the local biodiversity strategy until the agenda. The environmental issues are managed by the Shire's Environmental Sustainability Officer and other, quite correct, but it takes away the input of the community and council into those informing decisions, which is the purpose of a council committee. The committee's main role was to provide advice on the implementation of the environment management strategy. The purpose of this committee was increased through council resolution. All of that is correct, and it had very wide and important role. The committee was never intended to be a vehicle for becoming an autonomous group, pulling in members from other community-driven environmental groups within the district or regional areas to drive their ideas and agendas not determined by council. That is adverse reflection of the committee and totally inaccurate. Councillors who were members of the committee passed feedback from the committee to councillors either via email or through the council forums process. We as councillors do that all the time about every committee. We pass information. Generally, that is aside from the formal role of the committee, and it is recommended that this committee to be disbanded as its functions are handled by the Shire's Environmental Sustainability Officer and other relevant staff. That's inaccurate.
Okay, thank you. I think we drifted off a bit there, but the officer's recommendation is there in front of us. We've had speaker for, speaker against. Is there anybody else wishing to speak for or against? No, I'll put that to the vote then. The officer's recommendation as presented in the agenda. All those in favour? Councillor McCormick, Councillor Prater, Councillor McEwen and Councillor Duval. And those against? Councillor Wrench and Councillor Madachi. So that's recommendation 1. Now, Councillor Duval, you have an alternate of recommendation 2.
Yes. The alternative motion for the recommendation 2 is that Council establishes the following working groups: A heritage working group, and B, a sustainability working group, and 2, request the CEO to bring draft terms of reference for each working group. Now, I have got to the December ordinary council meeting, but I'm thinking it's probably a bit short. I might change that to February with the February 2025 ordinary council meeting for consideration by council. My reason for the alternative is that the heritage and sustainability are quite different areas of expertise, and by having a dedicated group for each, the membership can dedicate their time to their specific area of interest and knowledge.
Okay, so you're moving that?
Yes.
Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Prater. Do we have any objections to that motion? Councillor Wrench, you have a
May I ask a
clarification?
question?
Yeah.
Could you please, Councillor Duval, could you please outline what sustainability actually means in your opinion?
Certainly. I believe that's another word for environmental, so it's looking at all the natural environment and the similar things that the Environmental Committee covered. Yep.
Councillor Madachi?
So, further to that answer, are you proposing that the sustainability group will be run with the input of those members of the Environment Committee or through the Heritage Committee?
I'm proposing there's 2 separate working groups and requesting the CEO to bring back terms of reference for each working group, as stated in my motion, for consideration for Council in the February 2025 meeting.
All right, then further to your point 2, I'm happy to accept point 1, but point 2, surely the terms of reference for each working group should first be workshopped by those of the working group and then brought to the CEO for discussion, given that is the basis of the expertise of the groups.
I don't see how we can form a working group without the terms of reference.
Then you're looking at you're having specialised areas determined by people who are not specialists in the area. So I'm not sure how you intend to, perhaps a draft. So you've got the draft terms of reference. Okay, we'll leave it with the draft. Thank you.
You okay with that? I can see what, no, just leave it there. I think we've agreed with that, yeah. Well, we haven't agreed yet, but I think Councillor Madachi's
I'm happy
comfortable with it.
I'm happy with the alternate motion as it's written.
So are there any objections to the alternate motion? No. Well, we'll declare that carried. Understanding Order 9.1. The next item on the agenda is item 9.3.5 with a recommendation on page 51. It's a long recommendation with lots of numbers in. It refers to Council noting expenditure to contract aquatic services and authorising some budget amendments that will result in a nil impact. That's a nil net impact, I guess, that you're talking about there. Maybe we could put the word net in there. Nil net impact. Is that what we mean? Nil net impact, yeah. So with that very minor amendment, I'll move that particular recommendation. Do I have a seconder before we move on?
I just want a bit of clarification.
Okay, away you go, yeah.
Just on the I seen on Facebook there was a post on there that 157,000 was going to be for the pool, aquatic pool manager. Now, is he going to be doing the same as what the previous pool manager, or is there more? Through the chair.
Through Mr Shire, President. So a couple of things there. He's a she. Her name's Molly. 157 is 157,800. It's not just to replace the swimming pool manager, it's the contract. So with that, they're obviously providing a staff member to run the pool, they're providing compliance checks, they're doing training, they're doing process improvement, they're doing the marketing of the pool. A number of those things weren't done by the previous pool manager, and it's probably why it's reflected in this budget adjustment, some of those changes.
So, do I have a seconder? That's the question. Councillor Prater. A question, Councillor DeVell?
Thank you. Just a clarification. I've seen published on social media as well, where it's quoted that the incentive report shows the estimated total cost for the new pool contractor, or this issue of, and it's comparing costs of Club Links of 750,825 with Shire managed of 833,936, and with my own looking at the incentive report on the attachments, that doesn't seem to add up with my interpretation, and I'm just wondering how that sits within the budget and other issues of this pool management, and can you just please clarify if those numbers quoted are correct?
Can I just show the numbers there?
It just doesn't seem to add up.
Got them there.
So
CEO?
through Mr Shire, President, and I have got the incentive report here. I was just double checking a few things. There are two figures in that report, 833,936, which indicates is the Shire's cost versus Club Links of 750,825. However, to quote those two figures is, if anyone's quoting them, it's misleading and grossly misrepresenting the true issues. A couple of things to look at in there. The 750,825 is for the expense of Club Links in 22-23, so 2 years old on that. The actual deficit, the actual deficit is 736,696. So when we look at costs, we always look at deficits or profits. In this report, the author, being Incentive Consulting, pretty well put a disclaimer in that they say that there's low confidence in the accuracy of certain expenditure, being Shire labour costs, Shire plant costs and Shire material costs. And a good example and reason for that is the Shire material costs under the Club Links contract costings came at 0. So if we were to then look at what was included in here, and this is done by a third party, we need to bring and look at apples with apples, and that is from 22-23, extract that figures and put it into the 24-25 budget. So if we look at the actual costs provided in this report by Incentive, there's been an increase from the previous financial year of over $100,000, 17%. One of the comments I noted in here was there was $110,000 extra from 21-22, and the budget figures for Club Links for 23-24, because these are on actuals, was 15% more. If we look at the report and where the figures were quoted of 833,936 for the Shire to actually manage the facility, the total deficit, and this is why I said it's important for the total deficit to be looked at, because you've got to compare apples with apples, quite clearly shows 715,496. So even if we look at those two different figures, in the incentive report, the Shire run facility is cheaper based on current financial years, even when relating it to two-year-old actuals from Club Links. When we also look at that, and I've gone through the financials, when we look at the costs for the Shire run, there's a number of costs that have been put in that weren't taken into consideration under the Club Links, and the amount is $70,000 under the Shire run for ground maintenance, and that's why the consultant of Ascentive questioned and had low confidence in the figures that were put with the Club Linked cost of the Shire labour costs, Shire plant costs and Shire material costs of only being roughly 24,476. So there's a big gap in there. So we need to look at those differences as well to actually bring that back. So if we actually then extrapolate all that information, and I actually did a couple of calculations then as well, and based on some really basic financial modelling, and I always like to underestimate, overestimate, it would cost roughly $250,000 saving with the Shire run facility than what it was doing with Club Links. And the reason why is if we look at the deficit of Club Links in 22-23 of 736,696, and we do a 10% cost increase, although it has been going 17.5 and 15.6, and then we also do a bit of a difference of the 70,000 that's been allocated in the Shire run for the Shire labour costs and plant costs, taking away what was actually put in the Club Links, there's another $46,000. So what that actually extrapolates to, based on underestimating any increases, and we all know the last two financial years how our own power bills and everything else has gone up, and wages have gone up, we're looking at 936,926 versus a 715,000. So there's quite a big difference there. So going back, and it's probably outside the actual item because we're talking about budget adjustments, but if we look at the incentive report, and if we look at those two figures, if anyone's quoting that the Club Links was costing $750,825 and the Shire will cost $833,936, in my professional opinion, they're grossly misleading anybody because it's factually incorrect and being proven to be incorrect.
Thank you.
Councillor
I've got a
Madachi.
number of questions. One of those...
Councillor Madachi, you can have one question.
Yes, certainly. The first question is in response to the information. I believe the Ascentive report was written at the time with the financials for the Club Links still not completely settled, and also the expenses for self-run was hypothetical at that point. So they'd worked out estimates based on what had previously gone. So really arguing the point on either of those figures...
So is it a question?
Yes. So arguing the point on either of those figures can only be settled, am I correct, with the actual figures for the last financial year being presented?
Through Mr. Shire President, it's always difficult, even for qualified accountants, to actually look at costs of something that was done previously in previous financial years and then looking at in future financial years. That in itself is difficult without doing a couple of analysis and actually suggestions of what may happen. And as you heard, I looked at the costs of Club Links for the last 3 years, in particular the last two with actual the budget amount as well, and there was a 17% increase and a 15.6% increase. Whether that would continue, don't know. However, it would be reasonable to put an assumption in there that a 10% increase in the future 2 years to compare the same financial year costings would be a reasonable assumption. In addition, when we look at the costs that was done in the Shire run, having $70,000 in there for Shire labour staff as well is probably a reasonable assumption. But then when we look at the Club Link amounts, when there's only 4,476, that would indicate with no Shire material costs that perhaps the costings weren't properly going to that facility. And Ascentive consultants themselves raised that as a concern. So it is always difficult, but you've got to compare apples with apples. And so, yes, there's always suggested amounts that could be, might not be. I think there was an amount of 109,303,000 that was included in the Shire Run costings, and that was for administration and audit fees. Now, I know our audit fees are going up, but I don't know how much that percentage of that 109,000 would be for audit fees. So there's another one that's actually been included in the costings, but I don't see any calculations or included for any auditing under a Club Links one. So yes, always making assumptions, always a little bit different, and yes, done by a third party, relying on information being inputted in there. You can't rely on it 100% accuracy, but it gives you a good indication.
Thank you. Okay. I do have a couple of other questions.
Are they directly related to the recommendation before us?
Yes. Yeah, they're just questions to item 9.3.5.
Yeah, but we're considering the recommendation. So do they relate directly to the recommendation?
Oh, yes, the recommendation is dependent on the
Okay.
officer's report, is it not?
Okay, I'm just asking it.
Right, thank you. Just had a couple, some of them have been sort of answered, so there's no point going over completely again. So the main one I wanted to ask, in the body of the report, is the retail sale of stock mentioned on page 50 of the officer's report not already included in the management costs in the Ascentive management report?
So through Mr Shire President, I'm struggling to follow this question.
Right, if you go to page 50, you have put down, where is it? Hang on. Excuse me, let me just get to the page. You have down here, income from retail sales of stock, bottom item, 21,000. And these are the items that you are speaking about that are amending the budget. But at the moment, income from retail stock would be a hypothetical. And secondly, it was already included, my understanding, in the estimates of the Ascentive report for the financial year of running, for the cost of the Shire running the facility.
So what is your question?
So my question is, why have we included that cost there if it's already included in the overall costs? We are looking at a budget adjustment. It's already factored in.
Through you, Mr Shire President, the reason why we're actually reducing the income from the retail stock is we won't be actually selling stock.
Okay, thank
and
you.
that was in the budget.
Okay, thank you. And there was another question. Do the swimming pool employee costs of 161,814, which is the sum of the costs that you have there, relate only to the previous swimming pool manager or more than one employee? And was this an annual estimate or calculated for the proposed contracted period? So at the moment, we're looking at a proposed contracted period, not an annual period. So the estimated costs there, do they refer to annual or?
So can you point out which is the exact number you're looking at?
Right. Recreation and sport salaries and wages, 54,569.
Yeah.
Swimming pool salaries and wages, 104,795.
Gotcha, thank you.
Right, those costs there.
Okay, through Mr Chair President, now I understand my confusion because they probably add up to 159. That isn't just all of it. So you've also got the swimming pool other leave expense, swimming pool superannuation. These are all employee costs. They're not the total amount that's in the budget, but what we're suggesting in this item, in the recommendation, is those amounts can be reduced in the current budget to cover the cost of this contract.
Okay, thank you. So I asked, were they covering the swimming pool manager or more than one employee? And was this for the contracted period? So are we looking at 7 months here, or are we looking at an annual figure? Because you're saying, accordingly, officers are proposing the following budget amendments resulting in a nil impact to the adopted budget, but we don't see them in context. So we don't, if you are reducing some staff.
So what's your question?
The question is, do the swimming pool employee costs that are stated there relate only to the previous swimming pool manager or more than one employee? That's the first question.
More than one employee.
All right, thank you. The second, and was this an annual estimate or calculated for the proposed contracted period?
Through Mr Shire President, you budget for the annual year, but with a swimming pool cost, 95% of that for wages is in the summer period or either side of it.
All right. So we're 5 months into this financial year, so that won't be the total amount that we will be saving in the nil cost.
Pardon?
Because we would have already paid them up until now.
Through Mr Shire President, I think there's some confusion with this. This report is identifying where we can make amendments to the current budget. These are not the total amounts. So, for example, if I was to look at the POS system purchase and install, we're saying we could save $7,500 there because the budget amount was $10,000, $11,000. We've already purchased the POS and it was $3,000 roughly. So there's been savings on that. When we look at, for example, the swimming pool advertising promotion costs, we're saying we can reduce that by $9,683. That was the full year budget. However, I don't think I'd be advertising the swimming pool in June, July. So therefore, we do not need that expense in our budget because under the current contract, they'll be doing that for us. Also, as was asked at the agenda briefing, for example, the swimming pool electricity budget of $15,000, that's not the total budget. The total budget for electricity was about $60,000.
No, I understand that.
Don't quote me on the exact figure, but $60,000. But we don't need to be running the pumps all the way through winter. So we actually have identified that we can actually reduce the amount of expenditure on the swimming pool electricity account. So if it is $60,000, we take $15,000 off, so the budget will be $45,000. With that one as well, if budgeted properly, we would be showing that majority of those electricity costs were going through in the December, January, February period, plus or minus a month or two behind. There should be little electricity costs at a swimming pool in the winter period because the pumps should not be running. So they're the items that we identify. When we've done all that, and you could say that we were over budgeted in salaries and wages, and that's because the staffing levels at the pool were far excessive of what's required legally, and it was questionable why. We were able to also then, with those savings in things like advertising, POS, electricity, also have an extra $50,000 that we've recommended should be put in the budget to deal with compliance matters that was being identified and continue to be identified so we can improve the pool.
Okay, look, I do have 2 more questions and I'll keep them as simple as I can because I can see, you know, this is taking a little while, but they are important to my understanding of this. Right. The first one, given the Department of Health's Code of Practice for the Design, Construction, Operation, Management and Maintenance of Aquatic Facilities Section 5.5 says off-season periods. During the off-season, whilst an aquatic facility is not in use, operators shall ensure water clarity is maintained and algal growth prevented. And among that, the next comment was aquatic facilities shall receive sufficient maintenance to ensure they do not give off objectionable odours, become a breeding ground for insects, or create any other nuisance or hazard. So, has the intent of not using the pool pump during winter to reduce the power bill been advised to comply?
Through Mr Shire President, I'll take what Councillor Darchi said about the legislation. I'm not going into details there, but there's different ways you can actually do your winter off-season. The majority of swimming pools that I know of that do not get used in the winter period do a winterisation, and what's required every 8 weeks, takes about a day, is to go through and do that winterisation, and then that has no issues at the pool. But what it does allow you to do is not run your pool pumps, and as I said at the agenda briefing, when you've been running your pool pumps for 3 years continuously, the pump's equivalent to a 6-year-old pump.
Right. And the second part of that question is, or if the pool is intended to be emptied, has the cost of the replacement water when we start up been estimated, and include the chemicals in that? Obviously you'd be...
Through Mr Shire President, I don't know of any pools that get emptied over the winter period except for those who are doing maintenance.
All right. Okay. Now, the last question that I have is, given the advertised hours of operation, is the contract aquatic manager to commute from outside the Shire or be provided with accommodation in 2J?
Through Mr Shire President, I'm not sure of the relevance on this item, but as I've previously advised Councillor Madachi, a Shire house has been provided.
Right. So if in 2J, who has paid the account to date and how much, and who will pay the accommodation now?
Through Mr Shire President, as I've previously advised Councillor Madachi, is a Shire house. So it's a Shire.
So, okay, so they're staying at the Shire house at no cost to the Shire. Is that understood?
Well, through Mr Shire President, there's always a cost for any building, no matter what building it is.
Yep, thank you. But are they paying, what I'm saying is, are they paying do they have a lease? Are they paying an amount? Or are we talking about utilities?
Through Mr Shire President, as part of the contract, we provide accommodation, and that's included in the contract.
Thank you. Okay, that's all the questions that I have.
Okay, I can't remember if we had mover and a seconder, did we? We did?
Yes.
Do we have any objection yet?
I'm sorry, I have a question.
You may, yeah.
Thank you. Can I please have some clarity in relation to the discussions we've had and the questions prior as to whether this was an emergency situation and how it changed?
Well, that's not relevant to what we're doing.
It's relevant to the document. It's actually listed in the document that it was an emergency process that needed to be taken.
Through Mr Shire President, for the 5th time today, I'll state that to cover all bases, I treated it as an emergency. Advised the Shire President the emergency was because the swimming pool would be closing. We also had swimming lessons already had started, but advice since then is I don't need to treat it as an emergency, and all I need is for Council to note the expenditure and then also authorise the budget amendments.
So I think just if we have a look at the recommendation, we're noting the expenditure to aquatic services, which has happened, and all we're doing is authorising these budget amendments. We're not making any other decisions about this. So anyway, that's where we are. Do I have any you have another question?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. May I understand where we sourced contract aquatic services from?
Through you, Mr Shire President, using every contact and every possible lead I could do to find anyone that could do it. These were the ones that were able to actually come to our rescue. They actually are used by a number of Wheatbelt local government swimming pools and come highly regarded by a number of local governments.
And I understand the timeframes and the need to move quickly, but what due diligence was undertaken?
Through Mr Shire President, obviously talking to other local governments as well in how they've found them performing. We also compared any other provider as well, being Royal Lifesaving, which was not able to accommodate as well.
Sorry, just one more. We've discussed how you found someone to temporarily look after the centre for the weekend. We had a vacancy. Was there opportunity for them to stay on and actually continue to look after, and is it in a casual process, so we could have gone through a procurement process?
Through Mr Shire President, they were actually through Contract Aquatic Services. They got a temporary person up here. They then juggled around their other contracts so they could provide us the opportunity to have Molly here for the whole season.
Sorry, so for clarity, there was opportunity for them to continue out on as casual whilst we actually went through a process?
Through Mr Shire President, no, they were able to come up for the weekend to do what they were doing while we were able to source Molly. And it wasn't just a swimming pool manager that we needed to source. We needed expertise because of a number of issues that were discovered.
Thank you.
So, moving back to the recommendation, do we have any objections? Councillor Badachi? Does the mover wish to speak for? That's me. No, I don't. Does Councillor Badachi, you wish to speak against?
Thank you. My understanding from the Shire of 2J Structure Bulletin of the 12th of November and during question time today, the CEO had identified issues in recent weeks at the Aquatic Centre. The manager resigned on the 4th and left on the 8th, and Contract Aquatic started on the 11th of November. So for at least a week, the CEO and President were aware of issues at the Aquatic Centre before the manager left. During that time, Council had held a special council meeting, but councillors were not informed there were problems, nor a meeting called to discuss and authorise an unbudgeted expense. Yet the Local Government Act states Council is to oversee the allocation of the local government finances and resources, and regulations state a payment can only be made from the municipal fund if delegated to the CEO or authorised in advance by Council. The only exception being the Shire President can authorise unbudgeted expenditure in an emergency under section 6.81C of the Local Government Act. However, the purchasing policy referred to in the officer's report to validate the purchase says the expenditure is required to respond to an imminent risk to public safety or to protect or make safe property or infrastructure assets in accordance with section 6.8 of the Local Government Act and Regulation 11(2)A of the Local Government Function and General Regulations of 96. Both refer to the emergency provisions. And this section of the purchasing policy also says time constraints, administrative omissions and errors do not qualify for definition as an emergency purchase. If emergency purchases are made under section 6.8 of the Act, page 11, the President must authorise in writing the necessary budget adjustment prior to the expense being incurred. However, the Act and regulations refer to the Emergency Management Act of 2005 to define emergency, which, as we've heard today, means the occurrence or imminent occurrence of a hazard which is of such nature or magnitude that it requires a significant and coordinated response. In that Act, emergency management means the management of the adverse effects of an emergency, including A, prevention, the mitigation or prevention of the probability of the occurrence of...
Excuse me, Councillor. No,
I have 5
excuse
minutes.
me, Councillor. I'm raising a point of order.
What?
How How is this relevant to the resolution?
It is.
No, I haven't asked the question yet.
It'll be.
I'm asking you to be relevant.
It is relevant.
Councillor, please stop interrupting me. Let me get out the point of order. On relevance, none of what you're saying is relevant to what is in front of us today.
You will find the relevance in 4 seconds. Emergency management means the prevention.
Sorry,
Please let me finish.
I gave you 4 seconds.
Prevention, the mitigation or prevention of the probability of the occurrence of and the potential adverse effects of an emergency.
Sorry, councillor.
Therefore-
Councillor, please stop again.
therefore,
Please
the
stop again, councillor. I'm raising a point of order. How is what you're saying relevant to this recommendation? The recommendation is to authorise...
You are stopping me from giving the relevance to the recommendation by the point of order. I'm telling you the relevance right now.
No,
Will you
what-
let me summarise this last piece?
Not until I tell you what I'm worried about. I'm worried that what you're saying may be true and may not be true, I don't know, but the recommendation in front of us is purely about noting an expenditure and authorising a budget amendment.
All right.
Nothing you have said so far has
All right.
mentioned either of those items.
It is about to. Therefore, the definitions do not appear to support an emergency in this case, in which the Shire President could act to authorise an unbudgeted expenditure of $157,800 because the issues could be managed by closing the pool and securing the premises, and the matter could have come to Council to discuss and endorse a decision. For these reasons, and because the financial information in this report...
Sorry, councillor, you're not being relevant to what's in front of
For
us.
these reasons...
Sorry, councillor, stop continuing. And
Are you blocking debate?
I'm asking you to explain the relevance of what you're saying.
I'm trying to,
Will you please wait for me to finish?
No, you keep...
Oh, please, are you telling me you won't wait for me to finish? Thank you. We are discussing, all we are noting is the expenditure to aquatic services, which has been dealt with as a day-to-day operational matter, and we are authorising budget amendments.
Yes.
Can you explain anything that you said is relevant to either of those items?
Yes. The last sentence ties it all together.
Say it again then.
For these reasons, and because the financial information in this report and from answers to questions I have asked do not provide me the confidence to support this decision, I will vote against.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else wishing to speak for or against? Councillor Wrench?
I will be voting against, and I know this is probably skating the line in relation to the fact that we're being asked to note the expenditure for the contract, but we went into a contract with Club Links a few years ago that we were not prepared for, we didn't manage. There was a lot of community unrest and upset about that, and I feel the council has not been given the opportunity to make a decision on going into another contract for the aquatic centre that allows us to say we are aware and across what we need to be. So that is why I would be voting against
I
this.
appreciate that, but again, on the point of relevance, that's not what we're here to discuss today. What we're here to discuss is to note the expenditure, and that's happened, and to authorise the budget amendments. So has anybody got any further objections to doing those two things? That's all we're doing. So is there anybody else wishing to speak for or against? Okay, well, I'll put the resolution or the recommendation to the vote and point out, as a rebuttal, I'll point out once again that I don't think any of the people who objected to this recommendation addressed this recommendation. They talked about other things, but they didn't talk about this recommendation.
Point of order.
Yes?
You are putting words and assumptions into our mouth.
I'm exercising
And
my...
you're debating.
Absolutely am exercising my right of rebuttal as the mover. And in my opinion, nothing that the objectors have said addresses this recommendation. It addresses something else. So I'll now put it to the vote. All those in favour of the recommendation as it stands, Councillor McCormick, Councillor Prater, Councillor Councillor McEwen and Councillor Devell. Those against, Councillor Wrench and Councillor Madachi. So I declare that carried. We have an item from the Bushfire Advisory Committee on page 54 relating to the adoption of Bushfire Brigade's local law. We have two recommendations from the Bushfire Advisory Committee. The first one is that Council receives the minutes of the Bushfire Advisory Committee as attached. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Wrench, seconded Councillor Prater. Any objections? No. And then an officer's recommendation number 2, which is reasonably long, relating to adoption of a Shire of 2J Bushfire Brigade's local law. We'll have to read this one out because it's okay. The Council, under absolute majority pursuant to the provisions of section 3.123 of the Local Government Act 1995, resolves its intent to adopt the Shire of 2J Bushfire Brigade's Local Law 2024, A, the purpose of which is to provide for the establishment, organisation and maintenance, administration and funding of bushfire brigades, B, the effect of which will repeal the previous local laws and ensure that bushfire brigades will be organised and managed to comply with this local law, and C, the justification of which is that it will provide rules to a bushfire brigade governing the operation of a bushfire brigade pursuant to the Bushfires Act of 1954 and the provisions of its subsidiary legislation. Requests the CEO to advertise a local public notice. Attachment 5, requests the CEO to send to the Minister a copy of the proposed local law. Attachment 2, a copy of the public notice. Attachment 3, and requests the CEO to provide a copy of the proposed local law in accordance with the notice to any person requesting it. Phew. Do I have a mover? Councillor McCormick, seconded Councillor Devell. Are there any objections to that? Okay, I declare that carried. We have no motions of which previous notices have been given. Nothing about the next meeting. That's item 11. Item 12. We do have a new business of urgent nature in section 13.2. Yeah, so the item in 13.2 is a confidential item under, in accordance with section 523.2 of the Local Government Act, section H. And I propose we move behind closed doors to consider that and also to consider the Australia Day recommendations. Do I have a mover for that? Yep. Councillor Devell and a seconder, Councillor Prater. So are there any objections to that? Yes. Yes, good question.
My point of order is this does not fit the criteria for new business of an urgent nature under Standing Orders 4.5.
I take that. Sorry, Councillor, I should have dealt with that first. Yeah. Yeah, I do need to move that we consider this item a matter of urgency, of an urgent nature, in accordance with section 4.52. And I've already moved. We can have that debate behind closed doors, Councillor. We've already moved and seconded the movement to behind closed doors. Any objections to moving behind closed doors? No. Okay, in which case I'll declare that carried and ask everybody to leave apart from the councillors and the exec manager, corporate and community. Then you can go on with your business.
Deal with Australia Day 1, then deal with the urgent item. If it gets
Okay, and the CEO will stay for the first item. Yeah. She can stay for the other if she needs to. Yeah. I'll let that go. Yeah, you can stay. Rosemary, sorry. We're going to do, for the sake of efficiency, we'll do the Australia Day one first. So in a moment when Councillor Wrench returns, we'll start.
So, Mr. President, what are we doing the ballot first, are we?
Councillor Wrench went out
Through the chair.
2:56. Hang on, yeah, hang on.
Mr. President, I want to declare an interest in this.
Yeah, if you like, yeah. You can do those now while we're waiting. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I've got one here.
Have you've got the form there, Rosemary?
Yeah.
We'll wait for Councillor Wrench to come back.
Okay.
Have you got the dicky chair?
Need a high chair.
Just tell me when we're live. Well, okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the Ordinary Council meeting of the 27th of November. We've moved out from behind closed doors at 4:40 p.m. The next item on the business for the meeting is just to notify that the Audit and Risk Committee meeting will be on the 4th of December 2024, and the next Ordinary Council meeting will be 1 week before Christmas on the 18th of December 2024, and I declare the meeting closed at 4:41 p.m.